Hello and welcome to the 100-day art challenge. We have just finished the run of oil pastel portraits and are now onto a different and exciting medium, soft pastels. I am doing a bit more of a loose and expressive piece at the moment, and the idea is that I have an exhibition on at a place called Trevenant Inn, and I want to do a couple of pieces that are going to go on the wall there. I've already got work up and there's just spaces that I'm yet to fill, so I've got this nice big piece of fancy paper. You may not be able to tell, but it's not a normal sheet of paper. This it is quite fancy thick paper, which is almost feels like material. And what I've done is I've just laid down some black soft pastels, and now I'm using a bit of water to play around on the surface. So I dip my finger into the water and I'm drawing certain things that I have drawn many times before from the farmland that I visited, and then thought, I don't really want the piece to be drawn with my finger. I want this to be something a bit more I want it to be messy underneath and drawn on top. So I thought, right, I'll just splash it around, move it about. I don't want the whole surface to be grey. I want there to be movement, so I've just flicked some water on there and let it drip and just left it a bit loose and, as I said, expressionistic, which just means based on the emotion that I have at the time. So that kind of worked because that's what happened. I started off with an idea and then pushed it around outside of the initial constraints of my drawing impulses, and then with this second piece I thought I'll cover the whole surface so that there isn't as much white, but I will do a similar thing with just my fingers and some water on top of soft pastels. It just becomes like a paint and you can move it around quite nice and loosely. If you've never done this, it's lovely, and the idea is to just make that, leave it all loose and washy as the first layer and leave that to dry. Now that that's done, I need to get to work and try to find some good source images, because when I made these kind of squiggles and puddles and messes on the surface, I didn't have images ready to go so that I could start working on pieces of artwork to get in frames and take to Trevenant Inn. And instead I just thought it would be nice to have something started like that. So here we are. This is the second of the two, and just to show you the direction I go in to make a piece of work for there, I made this exhibition with a friend of mine called Petra, and her and I were interested in farming machinery and farmland, and we ended up visiting cattle markets and farmers and walking around quite a bit of the area to go and talk to people and photograph the machinery and the buildings and things on the farmland. Sometimes it was the old machinery that intrigued us, and other times it was old dilapidated buildings, but it was usually older things. It wasn't as much new technology or new structures that we were interested in. So we would be intrigued by the age of things and the history of them. We'd just gravitate towards that as part of the story, and that's kept the same up till now. This was last year that we did all this work, and she has since taken her work down from Trevenant Inn, and I'm now have the same interests in farming. I still talk to one of the farmers who I met as part of that project, and for this piece I'm now just getting one of I think it's the dark grey to push in some tone, and I'm just trying to draw certain suggestions of things. Part of my thought process for this was to not do a complete drawing on the surface, but just to suggest the darker areas of certain parts and see how well I could describe something and keep it quite loose, so that it was it looked more like a fine art piece. I didn't want it to look like an illustration which went along with the other work, because the other work wasn't illustrated, it was more contemporary fine art, so it was a bit looser and more scribbly in ways. That's kind of the style that this project lent towards, really. And then some of these textures on the surface really lent to this idea of an old building. So I did the chimney on the top and part of a roof with planks missing. This was actually a place that I saw when I was visiting Paris Mountain with John Williams, who is a friend of mine, one of the farmers who I met whilst researching this project. And we had a great day visiting Paris Mountain. I went there to go and collect pigment so that I can make egg tempera paintings, which is going to be one of the submissions for this challenge that I haven't done yet, but I'm looking forward to doing, because I've only made one egg tempera painting in my life, and that's when I was at art school, thanks to one of the students. A student a year above me had decided to do a workshop for us, and I'm very grateful that she did. It was a mature student, and she'd brought in all this pigment for us to use. We all got these little pallets to put the pigment in and an egg each, and we were told how to make egg tempera paintings, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. You can see here using the white soft pastel on top of the darker grey and black areas is really nice. It's not like using white chalk on top of charcoal, which goes blue. Soft pastel doesn't do that, and instead has a really nice tinted grey, and sometimes can sit quite white depending on how flush you can push it on the top as a flat opaque mark. So I'm trying to have this delicate balance between the light and shadow to describe things, and you can see the image coming together here. As John and I were walking out of Paris Mountain, I'd collected blue, yellow and red pigment. We saw this dilapidated farmhouse that looked very old, and I knew I had to take a photograph of it, and said to him, this should be one of the pieces that I make soon, and certainly would be fitting for Trevenant Inn, where I have a portrait of John up. I still have one piece to make, but I will be filming and sharing with you what the exhibition looks like when it's fully up, because at the moment it's got quite a few gaps in it that just need to be filled. I think it's only going to be in a couple of days that I'll go and finish it off. But I really enjoyed it, and just you see this sky part here where I just get the white and push it around, and before I completely fill the sky I think, wait a second, I need to put in a telegraph pole. I can see that in the picture before I get too carried away. And then there are a couple of trees in the background, so the composition's quite nice. I don't want too much sky, but I see the sky as negative space, and that's a big kind of guiding influence for my art making with regards to portraiture, landscape, still life and everything. Is the negative space is usually dictates what the composition is going to offer to me. I think that negative space is something which I notice in other people's artwork. If the space that is pretty flat and not detailed is a nice shape, and then the detail and texture and tonality is all pushed around the other parts, and then there's just this flat space around it that's a nice shape, then I appreciate it. And I think that slice of sky at the top with the mark for the telegraph pole, I think has a nice negative space shape for the top of this piece. And then I'm trying to loosely pick out parts of the roof, bits of stonework and bits of moss and things that have grown on the side. I've got a very old stone wall that's fallen apart there on the left, and some wooden posts, and it is just the enjoyment of it at this point where I have worked out what these are going to work like, because as much as I've used soft pastels before, it's always uncertain how well they're going to translate on this type of paper. It's the first time I've used this type of paper, and then using water with them and things like that. It's not always guaranteed, but that was the piece as far as I made it, and then it was time to put it into a picture frame. So the plan here was to measure the back of the frame and then to fit it in and see if it suited the frame as well. That's a big problem that can occur, is you have the best of intentions for a piece and you have a frame put aside for it and it goes in and it doesn't suit the frame, and that can be awkward. But this picture and its twin, I say it's twin, it's not the same piece, but it is one of two that I've made of this set, both suit this light wooden frame, so that was a relief. But yeah, so that's the picture. I am happy with how it looks. I'm looking forward to getting it into the space, and as I said, I will share with you what the whole exhibition looks like when it is up. And that is today's submission. I hope you enjoyed the video. I appreciate you watching. Thank you very much, and I will see you tomorrow.